So Bob and I, both as a team and individually, have operated from many of these locations you see here. I think we've really enjoyed going to the Pacific and providing some semi-rare locations to Western Europe and the East Coast of the U.S. And of course, for you guys, it's fairly easy. So we were shut down due to COVID. We haven't, my last expedition was 2019 to Ponape Island in Micronesia. So we haven't traveled for 3 years. And those, I know several of you have worked us as K7AR last November, and again as YJ0A in February. And I really mean it when I say it's good to be back on the air again. We can travel, we can go on expeditions, and it's just fun to be on the air again. So here's a little bit about Vanuatu. Prior to 1980, it was referred to as New Hebrides. And after independence, they took the name Vanuatu, which means our land forever. And you can see it's a group of islands just to the west of Fiji and north of New Caledonia. And a whole bunch of other Pacific islands there. And we always have our eye on those as we can go next. So these are the main islands of Vanuatu. The bottom island, called Efate, is where we're going. And that's where the capital city of Port Vila is, and that's where we fly from Nandi, Fiji. So we went, Bob stayed over at my place the night before we left and was lucky enough to work Bouvet the night before we left for an all-time new one from my location. And we flew from Portland to San Francisco to Nandi, Fiji, to Port Vila. And it was pretty much take one plane, wait 3 hours, take another plane, wait 4 hours, and so forth. And we finally arrived. As you international travelers know, you have to go through immigration and customs when you land. And they will give you an immigration form on the plane that you fill out. And when you land, you go through immigration. And this was very simple. It was just, here's my passport, here's my form, and it was stamped, and we moved on. And after that, everything went downhill fast. So after immigration, we got all our baggage and luggage, and we went to customs. And the customs folks asked if they could scan our equipment. Certainly, go right ahead. If you would like to inspect it, go right ahead. We're very cooperative. But they didn't know what all this electronic gear was. Are you here for a business? Do you have import permission? Well, we don't need import permission. We don't pay taxes on it. Well, we're taking this equipment back. We're here for a vacation, and this is our personal equipment we're taking home. I presented my YJ0A license, which was very formal on government letterhead and so forth, and it just didn't sink in. I explained what amateur radio was. I found our host in the lobby and I asked him to tell the customs people who we were. And we talked for a half hour or more, and I might as well go hit my head against the wall. So all of our radio gear was confiscated and locked up. It was, you can leave the airport, but your equipment cannot. Page 2. Okay. As I said, so we left the airport, our hosts were waiting for us, and we went back to our operating location. And they suggested, talk to the supervisor the next day and see if you can work something out. By the time we had arrived, it was after business hours. But when we got to our QTH, I sent a message to Bernie just saying, we hope to be on the air tonight, but there'll be at least a day delay. He then sent an update in his newsletter all over the world. And we were contacted by a lot of people who offered us help, which was appreciated. And one of them was none other than their former director of customs, Norman Shackley, G0OSX from the UK. And he basically said, if they need to contact him, just say so. And he said, they will know who I am if you need help. Okay, so this is looking a little better. I also contacted Jean-Luc Poas, who granted us our license, and I explained the situation. I think he sent them a letter in their native language that was somewhat critical about let these people go, let their equipment go, that kind of stuff. So the next day, we met with the supervisor, had another lengthy discussion, and we were finally allowed to get our radio gear and leave the airport. And it was nice of our hosts to take us on 2 round-trip trips to the airport. So this is a little more about what Efate Island looks like. And in the bottom right, you can see the 10-mile scale marker. So that'll give you an idea. This is a pretty good-sized island, 20 miles across maybe.
And see Pango at the little peninsula, that's where we're going to be.
Right here, if I can get my mouse to work, this Pango Peninsula, that's where we're going. And the next slide shows a close-up of that. And so we're staying at South Pacific Memories, which is right there on the coastline. It's about a half-hour drive from the airport. And here we are. A couple things I want to point out here. If you look at the door on the left, it says "Gone Diving." I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. And the man you see in the large door is a mannequin. I don't really know why he's there. All the buildings you see here were built during the pandemic and are very sturdily built of concrete, which I'll also talk about toward the end of my presentation as to why that's important. This is our bungalow called, what was it, Bob? The Buddha bungalow?
It's the Buddha bungalow.
We had this entire building to ourselves, and as you can see, it's a tropical environment. And unlike the customs department, I felt really welcome. These people were so friendly and so nice to us. They put flowers out of our bungalow, and they wrote Bob and Al in coral pieces. And I knew we were going to have fun staying here. So the next day, we started scoping out where can we put our antennas. Our bungalow to the location you see here is about 250 feet. So it's a good run of RG8X coax to get to the beach. And this is the antenna that I use, and this is the same one I used at K8H last November, DX Commander Classic, and it's tied to that rusty old fence. And this rock right here is also a guy point. One of the guy ropes is underneath this big rock or piece of coral. This is Bob's antenna, the trusty HF9V that's been on many, many expeditions. As you can see, we're only a few feet from the ocean. It's an excellent location. I think some of you have our QSL card, and this is the picture of the QSL card with both antennas, and they're, 100 feet apart, 125 feet apart, something like that, and a very nice sunset.
And you've got and there's a dive flag in the middle. You can just that's a yellow and yellow and blue flag, I think, kind of like a Ukrainian flag, but it's a dive flag that indicates that's where the divers go out. Yes, correct.
We also have up 160-meter inverted L just outside of our shack. And this is a 12-meter spider pole. It has a coil up here. And then this horizontal wire goes out about 40 feet. And then we have several radials on it. Here's our shack. Inside the bungalow, we have 2 more or less identical K3 Elecraft stations with the antenna and 500-watt amplifier. The little table in the middle is where our 160 antennas go, and we can move them to either station as needed. And I think I only did one shift on 160, so Bob did the majority of the 160 work. Here's a close-up of the station. I don't know why I'm on 3573 in bright daylight, but who knows? Trying to work other Pacific islands. The Elecraft gear is just proven itself. It's been just wonderful to use. Relatively lightweight. I mean, the amplifier weighs 26 pounds, but other than that, it's relatively lightweight. Here we are, both stations on the air. We're making contacts. Propagation on the upper bands was outstanding at all hours of the day and night. So 10 meters, 12 meters, 15 meters were really hopping. And not only were we on the air, but we're on Instagram. And I'll let you guys read this. Our host came in and took some photos of us and posted us on Instagram. This was near the end of our journey. I think we had 15,000 contacts. And as you'll see at the end, I believe we worked 127 countries. So all in all, really nice propagation. And whoever, I don't know who Roland Scherzy is, but apparently he liked our post. If you remember, we work with the WSJT developers to find bugs while we were in American Samoa. Well, we find another one here. So most of the time we operated in Fox-Hound mode. So let's say the Fox sends an RR73 message to W1AA. When that RR73 message is sent, the software also logs the QSO right then and there. However, W1AA never received his RR73 and sends a report again, as shown in the yellow text. So what happens? Fox, another RR73 message, logs the QSO again. Now this time the Hound got the report. Meanwhile, the QSO was logged twice. That's a problem. We had 560 of those WSJT dupes before we were working with Brian, N9ADG in Seattle, to fix it. Brian would send us test versions and say, see how this works. And we're grateful to him for spending time on that. In the meanwhile, you can see we had a number of insurance contacts. And
we were loading logs pretty much daily to club logs. So they're really,
right.
For those that were paying attention, there wouldn't be the need for a duplicate QSO.
Correct. I'm used to having bologna sandwiches and stuff when I go on trips. So to eat here at this 5-star resort was incredible. The food was outstanding. Here we have some nice pumpkin soup. And Bob, what is it? That's beef?
Yeah, I think so. Couscous, and might be a Middle Eastern one. I'm not quite sure. But every evening was three or four courses.
The yellow table has our typical breakfast. We had eggs, a small salad, and toast. And here we have a Mediterranean dish on the bottom. And like I said, just 5-star food, multiple courses. And of course, but at 7 a.m. local time, we go to breakfast before DXing and had a lovely breakfast. And these are our hosts, Anna and Petter. And they are from Norway. And they built this resort during the pandemic because labor was available. And these are just the nicest people. We had just a wonderful time here. They treated us so well. And once again, we're having yet another dinner.
One of the, just a little bit of background, Anna was a lawyer in Oslo. And Petter worked... when we were talking with them, conversing about what we wanted to do, and explained that we wanted to put antennas all over their property. He said no problem because he was involved with police communication in Oslo, and so he knew all about this, knew what to expect, and with both of them just great and very, very helpful and just delightful people.
Agreed. One of the things I get a big kick out when traveling is meeting local hams, and we got to meet Rod, YJ0A. He came by our shack 2 or 3 times. We went to his house. We saw his shack, and I'll show you some slides of his antennas and stuff.
In fact, he was at the airport and didn't realize that we were having problems, and so he was at the airport, hoping, kind of waiting for us to come out. And because we got hung up in customs, we didn't, and so he finally went home. He'd been in Vanuatu 42 years, originally from Australia.
He's Australian, right?
Yeah, right.
If he had contacted us beforehand and said, "Hey, we'll look for you at the airport," I might have looked for him. So this is Rod Shack. He's an eclectic guy and likes to pile up all sorts of stuff all over his property, all sorts of equipment and transmitters and parts. These are his antennas, which I think blew down in the cyclones I'm going to talk about a little later.
Yeah, he's sent to all the different islands on Vanuatu because he's in charge of maintaining the airport communications. And so when something happens, he gets sent off to some island. He was going to give us a round the island tour and got hung up because he went off to spend 3 or 4 days in one of the more remote Vanuatuan islands.
Rod invited us over with lunch. I don't have a picture of his wife, Ruth, but it was nice of her to make lunch for us, and we sat down and chatted a bit. So there are a number of kind of first things that happened on this expedition. We've never been on 60 meters before, 5.357. My SWR on the DX Commander was 4-to-1 SWR, kind of high. The antenna tuner seemed to match it okay. And the first thing I heard on the first day was a bunch of Europeans coming in, so I got on there right away. I think I can modify my loading coil to also cover this frequency, so I'm going to look at that. It's the first time we got on 6 meters. Unfortunately, it was toward the end of our trip, the last 2 or 3 days, and we didn't have a lot of opportunity to get on there, but I was surprised how open the band was and that people were hearing us and sending emails. The problem is, the question for all you technical guys, how much loss does 250 feet of RG8X have at 50 megahertz? 14 dB, 20 dB? I don't know what it is. But
yeah, we didn't even think about 6 meters since, we didn't bring a specific 6 meter antenna, but we were getting emails particularly from Japanese guys saying, "Hey, man, we can work FK and VK and ZL. Why don't you guys get on?" And so we did. It was great.
I got an email from a ham in Guatemala who said when he saw us on 6 meters, he fell out of his chair. And he called us, but I couldn't hear him. Then I got an email from a guy.
We did work XE. We did work at Mexico.
Right. We worked, Bob worked a guy in Mexico on 6 meters. And I got an email from a guy in Portugal who said he could hear me on 6 meters and was calling. And he sent us a screenshot, but not, I need to find some lower loss coax if we get serious about that. You saw the 160 inverted L. Well, I've always used that as a transmit and receive antenna. So this time we put up a separate receive antenna. I think it was worthwhile. I think the noise level was lower. I think we could hear a little quieter on it, but the conditions on 160 were not good. I refer to them as regional conditions. We could work Japan, and VK and ZL and around the Pacific, and a few of the big gun stateside guys. But in general, the conditions on 160 were not very good. When we go on these trips, always Asia or North America is our number one continent. Not this time. We had the most contacts with Europe than any other location, which from the South Pacific says a lot. It says we were on at the right time, and we were on when the Europeans were active, and they found us and made contact. So that's great.
It was amazing, like, you know, working Europeans on 10 meters until midnight, until it's, you know, you got to go get some sleep, and they're still there. Just amazing conditions.
I got on, I don't know if you know this, Bob, I got on 15 at like 2 in the morning local time, and I had a huge European pileup for 2 or 3 hours at 2 in the morning. Goodness. So when you travel, you like to meet local hams, and you like to experience local conditions and customs. So we were invited by the neighbors to come over and have a lap dinner with them. And lap is cooked underground in a stone oven with hot rocks. And I'm going to show you a video of us at the neighbors. What you'll see is we're all sitting around these banana leaves on kind of straw mats, and they're going to open it up, and then we can start eating. Let me see if I can get this to play.
Vanuatu, we call it lap sosor. Lap sosor.
Is it okay if I take pictures?
Yes, you can take pictures.
Is it okay to take pictures?
That is lap sosor. This lap we call it lap sosor. And I make a lap taro.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
I put it in the bucket, and then I grate it, and then I put the leaves. I separate the leaves and then put the lap on the leaves. I milk it. I create a coconut to milk the leaf, and then put the pour the lap on the leaves, and then in the middle of the lap, I put the cabbage and rocks in the middle, with the chicken wings in the middle. This lap like we have it, like we have the sauce. If I cut the lap in the small piece, and then you just take a small piece and then dip it in the sauce, in the middle of the sauce, and then you eat it once.
Tell me what you're doing.
Okay, that's the lap taro, and then I cut it in a small pieces like this. So that's the sauce in the middle with some rocks in the middle. So when you take a piece lap and then you dip it inside the sauce once, and then you eat it.
Don't get that in your teeth.
Oh, okay. So you're taking the rocks out there.
The rock inside it to cook the cabbage and the chicken.
So how long does all this take? When did you start
to
this?
cook?
Yeah.
Just 1 hour to be cooked.
5.
Yes, what does that mean?
Okay. So this is where they're gonna put the milk inside, coconut milk inside.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's it.
Oh.
You milk him po ang tablol kapitsa, pero kasi katis ble.
Come close. Yes, you always make fun. You okay?
So what you saw there was taro paste around the outside, and then chicken was inside that, along with some greens like cabbage. And then in the very center, they put coconut milk, and you dip your chicken into the coconut milk. So it was very nice of the neighbors to invite us over and have a nice dinner for us. The other local customs we experience is making kava, which you may have heard of. Kava is actually farmed here like a vegetable or something. They actually have farms. And Joel here has a fresh kava root, and he's going to show us how it's made into a drink. Okay, so we're going to start by cleaning it. So he cleans the skin off of it. This is the skin, and he's left with 2 or 3 pieces. In the old days, they used to use this coral stone to actually grind it. Today, they use a homemade grater. And then after it's done, we drink out of the coconut shell. And so there they're using the grater to grind up the cleaned root. And what we're left with is a pulp that gets mixed with water. In our case, if I understand it correctly, it was not made very strong, that it's possible to get it much stronger. Okay. And here, they're pouring the kava through a filter to get rid of any solid pieces. And it kind of looks like muddy water, and it kind of tastes like muddy water.
It tastes like muddy water.
Okay. All right. Here's Bob and I having a go at it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I can't.
But after this one, you can take something like a snack just to rinse your mouth with.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, so I take a little sip.
What is your name?
My name is Bob.
Bob.
Yes.
Okay. Ready for Bob to take the first shot?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Bob, you go. Go, Bob. Go. Go. You have to finish it.
Yeah, you have to finish it. You have to finish the whole thing?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, go, Bob. Go, finish. Go, finish. Go. Yeah. No. Enough. One more? Okay, now. Okay, we can take the kava. What is your name?
Al.
Al.
Cheers.
Cheers. Al, go. Go, Al. Go, Al. Go. Finish the kava. Go, Al. Go, Al. Finish. Just go once. Okay, go. You have to finish that. Go.
That's not perfect.
Hey. Okay, thank you. Slowly. Okay, take your cheers.
Well, that was fun. Now, Bob, if you ever get the hankering for more kava, there's a kava bar in Portland that you can go to. However,
featuring Vanuatu kava too.
And what I find interesting about this page is all these items are sold out. So what does that mean? It means they're super popular, and it really is sold out, or it's very hard to get. Kava is a drink all over the Pacific, and I think we were told that the version you get in Fiji is much stronger than what we had. I remember when I got up and walked around after that, my legs started feeling wobbly. So whatever happened. So South Pacific memories. As I said, our hosts were incredibly nice to us. All these buildings have sayings all around them, just little sayings and things painted on all the buildings and locations. Kind of interesting. And in our bungalow, we had this painting. This is hand painted, and it's a good 3 or 4 feet across, if not bigger. So somebody spent a lot of time to do this artwork, which is really nice, adds a nice touch. I said earlier that this is also a diving location. And here they are training students in the pool about how to use their diving equipment. And they go out in between where our antennas were and go out into the bay and go diving out there. So one of these days we might try that. Our departure is delayed. It's the last day of our trip. We packed up everything. We took all the antennas down. We packed it up. We're ready to go to the airport when I got an email saying our flight was delayed by 2 hours. Well, okay, but that means we're going to miss our connecting flight to San Francisco. Then I got a phone call, said our flight was canceled and rescheduled 2 days later. Well, that kind of throws a wrench into everything. But we went back to South Pacific Memories and said, can we stay here for 2 more days? They said yes. There we were for a couple more days. I don't think either of us had enough energy to put all the equipment back up again. So we put up the DX Commander, just that one antenna. It goes together fairly quick. And we set up 2 stations again, and we operated in on and off shifts for the last 2 days. Here's a little bit about our QSO count. The upper bands, as I said, were excellent. It looks like the most number of QSOs was on 10 meters, followed by 15 and 20. The low bands, I guess 80 meters wasn't bad, 500 Qs on 80, not bad. But as I said earlier, the upper bands really did great. I spent a little tiny bit of time on single sideband. It's not, how can I put this? The JAs like to stalk you in the Pacific. If I get in and if I get on sideband and call CQ, I have this enormous JA pileup. And no offense to them, but I can't understand them on sideband. And all it does is crowd out everybody else.
I think the other thing, Al, is that, you know, just as you guys saw, we had 2 stations in one room, and our beds, you didn't see it, but our beds were right on the other side of the room. So if somebody's on sideband, it's very difficult for the other operator to get any sleep. And our sleep schedule was such that, you know, we were sleeping in, you know, maybe 3 or 4 hours at a time at most.
So sideband can be disruptive. If Bob is working CW and I'm yelling into the microphone, I don't know. So we didn't spend a lot of time there.
Yeah, but we did operate 2. Cal, can you go back to the previous one? We did go operate 2 contests. We were able to operate the RTTY contest. So I operated the RTTY contest, which was the week before the ARL DXCW contest. So anyway, we made 500 contacts or so on RTTY, and then we made, I don't remember what the number was in the ARL DX contest, but you know, we had a good time in that one too. CW, just rotating through 3 or 4 hour shifts.
It's interesting to look at. As you might guess, JAs are high on the number of QSOs. So is United States. But look at all the Europeans on here. 1,200 contacts with Italy, 800 with Germany, 340 with Ukraine. They were all over the place, believe it or not. France, Spain, Greece. So it's nice to see all these Europeans. And the total QSO count without duplicates was just over 19,000. And as I said, the majority of that was with Europe. Surprisingly, not a lot from Oceania, just 2.9%. You would think that in the Pacific, we'd have a lot of stations, but not really. We're heading home. Pay attention to that date, February 25th, because a week or 8 days later, 2 cyclones and an earthquake hit this area. We got out of there kind of just in time, I suppose. I don't know what the current status is. The concrete buildings at South Pacific Memories probably withstood everything okay. I don't know about the trees and so forth. And
there were a lot of tree branches at least down. Anna and Petter said that there was sand everywhere. So apparently, you know, the sand from the beach came and, you know, covered a good part of the property with the wind, with the really high winds.
Right. So, and here's a picture of YJ0A's place with trees down and parts of his QTH missing. That's kind of sad. I hope they recover from that.
Rod was saying that Actually, the luncheon picture had pictures of some solar panels that I just set. He had behind there, and he had those set up, and he said that there were 25 phones connected to his getting power from his solar panels, which were the only thing that the neighborhood had for 30 days.
Rod was Mr. Solar Energy. He showed us all kinds of equipment that he has for solar, and in that location, it probably worked great, and especially in an emergency. So, as Marty Lane would say, where do we go next? We're looking at going to Christmas Island, Tango 32, but Bob, are they still shut down? It's very hard to tell. I was in communication with the Tourist Bureau in Kiribati, and I asked them, what about the flights to Christmas Island, which typically would go from Honolulu? And they said that they didn't know when they were going to start up again. So the website for a place that's a potential place to stay still says we're opening in early 2023 from COVID, but I don't know. So hopefully we can maybe get there this fall, but it's unclear at this point. Very good. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'd be happy to take some questions, and Bob would too.
Yep.